The book of Daniel starts off with 4 young Israelites from the royal family of David, who were taken into exile at the Babylonian court of King Nebuchadnezzar. Their names were Daniel, who was later named Belshazzar, and his 3 friends who are more commonly known by their Babylonian names, which are Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The king wanted them all to serve in the palace. In the first few days, they were pressured to give up their Jewish identity by living like the Babylonians and violating certain Jewish food laws that were found in the Torah. But Daniel had an inspiration from the Lord, and he decided that he will not defile himself with the foods that were offered.
We refuse to eat this, since we ought to be faithful to our God and follow the rules of our faith.
God intervenes in this situation, and they end up being elevated by the king of Babylon. The fasting taken up by Daniel is still practiced today and is known as the Daniel fast, lasting about 3 weeks. In the following years of King Nebuchadnezzar's reign, he had a dream, which really troubled him, and he was unable to sleep well.
I don't know what this means. Is my kingdom going to fall apart?
The king summoned the magicians and sorcerers of the land to reveal the interpretation of this dream, and even promised them great rewards if they did so. But no one knew what the king's dream meant. Daniel then volunteers to interpret the dream, and before doing so, he offers a special prayer to the Lord, which is found in Daniel chapter 2. The king's dream was about a huge statue made from 4 types of metal, which represents a sequence of different kingdoms, with the head of the statue symbolizing Babylon. But then a huge rock comes and shatters the statue, and it becomes a huge mountain of its remains. Daniel interprets this.
The statue actually represents a train of different human kingdoms which are following from Babylon, but they will all fill God's world with violence. However, one day God's kingdom will come to confront and humble all arrogant kingdoms of this world, and to fill it instead with the healing justice of the Lord.
This dream was the first of many different symbolic ones which are mentioned in the book. After this incident, Daniel and his friends got promoted at the king's court in Babylon. They received many gifts and were given the position as the chief prefect over all wise men of Babylon. Next up in the story, it talks about how King Nebuchadnezzar had built a massive golden statue upon the plains of Dura, and ordered the whole province of Babylon to worship this statue and the gods of the land. The king later came to know that some of the Jews did not heed to these instructions, and so they were called to come in front of the king. These were Daniel's 3 friends, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. "We refuse to listen to your orders about worshipping your foreign gods and this statue you have made. It is going against our commandments, and we will only praise our one true God."
Well, you leave me no choice. If you're not going to listen to my orders, your punishment is death. Send them to the fiery furnace.
The fiery blast was so hot, it killed the soldiers who had escorted them. But when the king called the men to come out of the furnace, they were completely unharmed. All of their clothes were intact, and they didn't even smell like smoke. God delivered them from death, and now they are exalted by the king, who acknowledges their God as the one true God after this incident.
Praise to your God for saving you from the fire.
A similar situation happens with Daniel. he is being persecuted because he refuses to worship the gods of King Darius. So, like his 3 friends, he is sentenced to death.
Belshazzar, you leave me no choice but to sentence you to death, a similar fate to all who do not follow the commands of the land. Guard, throw him into the lion's den.
God sent an angel to protect Daniel. On the 7th day, as the king was walking to mourn the death of Daniel, he emerged miraculously unharmed, since God delivered him from his trials. This led to the king exalting Daniel and praising God.
You are great, O Lord, the God of Daniel. There is no other besides you.
This book talks about the struggles of Daniel and his friends to maintain hope in the land of their conquerors. The last few chapters are about the dreams and prophecies of Daniel. A key dream which is described near the end is titled The 4 Beasts. This was a dream which Daniel has, and funnily enough, he is not able to interpret it until an angelic messenger explains it to him. It talks about 4 beasts emerging out of the sea, all seeking to ruin God's kingdom. But as always, God intervenes and triumphs over them all. Towards the end of the book, we see another instance where Daniel stands up for the truth. It was during the trial of a young lady named Susana, who was falsely charged. In the moments leading up to her execution, Daniel shouts out,
I have no part in the shedding of this woman's blood.
Through this courageous decision, Daniel made those in charge return to court and reconsider their verdict, which eventually rescued Susana from the death penalty after her innocence was uncovered. The book in turn highlights that standing up for truth and having the favour of God can turn any disastrous situation into a miracle.